the question once again of Russian interference is yet again rearing its head in British politics, and we'll get into that in a moment. However, this was always the big question we saw for years. Um, Obviously, the Russian interference in the Brexit vote, and this was dismissed constantly by Brexiteers, by at the time Theresa May in charge. We've never really still had, the full Russia report. And again, if I was sort of, in charge of things, I'd be making sure, hey, how much influence does Russia actually have in our politics? And are we making sure, that there are protections in place so that, they can't do this type of thing? And this is something, as we are saying today, right now, there is a former Brexit Party MEP who is in court for bribery charges linked to a Russian asset. So right now, there is more time than ever. I think we should be like ringing this alarm bell saying we need to sort of really give this a good and proper investigation. We can't just hand wave it away or just ignore it anymore. It is very, very obvious this is something that really, really needs to be asked. And in fact, we're going to go over. We'll be going over, of course, the story about that former Brexit Party MEP in a moment. But I also want to go over the Byline Times dropped 5 questions that Nigel Farage should be asked by journalists, and 2 of the questions are linked to this specifically because it is about how Farage himself was linked to many of these Russian assets, and how much influence had been influenced by Russia, and the fact that he is an MP should be raising once again that question of alarm bells. You know, is we should be worried about this. It might not, seem like it now, but this question of Russian interference in not only our politics but in the Brexit referendum needs to be, and I think should be settled once and for all. Even if you are a Brexiteer, if you believe that was like the purest, most sanctity of votes ever meant to have happened, you should be concerned about this as well, because more and more and more we are finding about how Russia interfered in that vote. And I think you should probably really care that your precious vote was probably interfered with more than you would like to admit. So before we do go on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. There are links to my Patreon page, the one of today's show called Buy Me Coffee, Weekly Well, Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And of course, let's crack on then into this. So first of all, and almost over onto the Byline Times. On this, 5 questions that Farage is never asked about Brexit, Trump, and Russia. Very good article. However, we're only going to go over to the first 2 questions because, again, this is sort of kind of linked to this other article that we're going to go over in the moment about the former Brexit Party MEP on this. So this is obviously the most one that a lot of people talk about. Why did Farage lie about meeting the Russian ambassador? Because there it is. There's the picture of him meeting the Russian ambassador. And we know Russia specifically targeted Eurosceptics and conservatives. First of all, to infiltrate the Conservative Party with the Conservative Friends of Russia, which you saw get disbanded very quickly after the Ukraine invasion. They very quickly disappeared under the carpet. That should absolutely be looked into, I think, a bit more. But of course, at the time, it was the Conservatives in charge, and they weren't, should we say, too eager to look into that. The other one would be the fact that they targeted UKIP and got into UKIP. And this is why Nigel Farage is meeting the Russian ambassador. Farage was constantly on Russia Today, and we know that he was even offered a show on Russia Today after the referendum. That should be ringing alarm bells. That should be very, very much ringing alarm bells. And one of the things I do want to highlight is that the guy who was in charge of that, the Russian ambassador at the time, Alexander Yakanov, I think that's how you say his name, actually had said this. And this is reported by a foreign diplomat. And he said, "We have now crushed the British to the ground. They are on the knees and they will not rise for a very long time." And all his idea was to, like I say, target and infiltrate the Conservatives and the Eurosceptic parties. Like, how can we not be concerned about that? And are they still, of course, targeting reform? Questions like this should be asked, especially when there's all of these, things building up, because these aren't just coincidences anymore. These should be looked into very seriously. So the other one is question 2. How could Farage not have known about Arron Banks's multiple visits to the Russian embassy during the Brexit campaign? So once the EU referendum was announced, David Cameron, back in 2015, serving the UK from the European Union, became the key strategic goal for Russian foreign policy. Ukraine had now ousted its Kremlin-backed president, Viktor Yanukovych, in the Maidan Glorious Revolution just the year before, over the issue of EU membership, and Putin saw himself now at war with the West. As a former KGB agent, he deployed now a range of covert alternative measures beyond the military interventions in Crimea and the Donbass. 10 days after just meeting with Andy Wigmore at the Doncaster conference back in late September of 2015, Alexander Uvdov invited UKIP's largest backer, Arron Banks, to meet with the Russian ambassador at his London residence. Udov was later expelled along with 23 other Russian officials after the Skripal poisonings. Though Banks did later admit to, quote, one boozy lunch in Isabel Oakenshott's books, The Bad Boys of Brexit, this first meeting in November was followed by many more, with which details now involving the privatization of Russian gold and the diamond state companies were discussed. Again, Arron Banks, biggest major backer of the Leave campaign. This should be looked into. This should be looked into a lot more on this. And then, of course, we get this breaking news. Former Brexit Party MEP in court on charges of Russian-linked bribery charges. So Nathan Gillis is accused of agreeing to receive money to make statements benefiting the Russian narrative on Ukraine. The former leader of the Reform UK in Wales agreed to receive money to make statements benefiting the Russian narrative on Ukraine while serving as an MEP, a court has been told. Details of the allegations against Nathan Gill, who served as a member of the European Parliament for UKIP and later the Brexit Party from 2014 to 2020, were laid out at the Westminster Magistrates Court on Monday. The police stopped him at Manchester Airport on 13th of September 2021 after he had been, quote, tasked on at least 8 occasions to make specific statements in the European Parliament to the news outlets concerning Ukraine, the court heard. Reading the charges to the court, Richard Link of the Crown Prosecution Service and the solicitor said that Gills stood accused of accepting payments to make statements which had a particular narrative that would have been to the benefit of Russia in relation to the events of Ukraine at the time. Link said that Gill was now alleged that to have agreed to accept or to agree to receive or accept money in the contravention of the Bribery Act. So, yeah. All these, coincidences just keep on piling up, don't they? And the thing is, we keep on getting told, oh, that's just a coincidence. That's just a coincidence. Well, all these things keep on building up and building up. I really do hope Labour really do start to take this seriously. I know there's just been this big thing about a Lord being caught in the cash for access scandal stuff, which again, I do think should be leading a big drive to reform the House of Lords. Absolutely on this. We should absolutely be using that once again to drive that message home. But of course, people aren't going to use that. They're going to use it to bash Labour instead. They say you should be driving a different message home than rather bashing Labour. You should be driving it to reform the Lords, but there you go. This here is something that we should be be very concerned about. Be very concerned about indeed. Especially as all this stuff has to do with UKIP, the Brexit Party, a reform, UK. We should be concerned. We should be very concerned. And this should be looked into. And if Reform UK has, quote, nothing to hide, well, then they should have no problem cooperating with any investigation into these links. Right? So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.